The prairie stretched endless beneath the waning light, its golden grasses bending like an ocean under the breath of evening. Shadows swam long across the earth, and the sky blushed a weary pink that bled into violet. Somewhere, a coyote's lonely cry trembled through the distance, and the land seemed to sigh with him. Tallulah Whitefeather stood alone at the edge of her people's homestead, her slender frame outlined against the sinking sun, her braids catching the last red glow. She was tall, strong in the way of the wind-scoured plains, yet she felt always too visible, always a stranger in the eyes of the town beyond the ridges. In her chest, a familiar ache whispered, "I am not beautiful enough." The words were not hers originally, they were given, planted like thorns by passing lips, by women who looked her over as though she were unshaped clay, by men whose glances slid away like water off stone. She carried their judgment like a hidden scar. At the market that morning, she had seen it again. Pale hands smoothing satin, eyes darting to her rawhide shoes, to the curve of her cheek, and then away. She'd heard the low laughter that burned hotter than fire. Yet, though her heart trembled, she walked upright, her chin a quiet rebellion. A child had tugged her skirt for coins, and she gave what little she had, unnoticed by all except the dust that clung to her fingers. Still, when she left, her pulse carried the sting of invisibility. But this evening, as the last light quivered across the land, hooves struck the hard ground. She turned. A rider approached on a black stallion, tall in the saddle, hat-brim shadowing sharp features. Colt Maverick. The name traveled the territory like wind itself. Wealthy ranch heir, breaker of horses, the kind of man whose steps seemed to command every room. Dust swirled around him as he reined in, and the stallion tossed its mane with a wild snort. Tallulah's breath caught though she told herself it was nothing. His eyes swept the horizon, and for a heartbeat, lingered on her. Could it be? Or was it only her hope playing cruel games? She lowered her gaze quickly, ashamed of her own trembling. Men like him had never seen her, had never lingered. Yet something in his stillness unsettled her. He did not ride on immediately. Instead, he studied her as if she were not the shadow others made her, but a horizon he could not look past. She forced herself to walk back toward her family's cabin, but every step felt unsteady, as though her body had learned a new rhythm she did not yet understand. The next afternoon, her hands ached with the strain of lifting a water bucket from the well. The heat pressed down like a smothering hand. She stumbled, nearly spilling the weight. Before she could regain balance, boots thudded softly against the earth, and the bucket was lifted with one strong motion. Colt Maverick stood beside her, saying nothing, just steadying the load as though it were the simplest task in the world. His nearness unsettled her, the smell of leather and horse, the quiet patience in the way he waited. She wanted to tell him she did not need his help, but pride tangled with gratitude, and no words came. Their fingers brushed. Time slowed, stretched taut like a lasso pulled tight, and then released when he tipped his hat and walked away without explanation. She stood rooted, her heart racing in silence. That night, rain swept across the plains. Tallulah wandered out beneath it, her dress clinging, hair heavy with water. The storm was a mirror to her unrest. Lightning lit the sky white, and in its brief fury, she cried out the words she had buried so long. "I am not beautiful enough." The wind snatched her voice, but the ache remained. She did not know that someone watched from a distance, his figure blurred in rain, unwilling yet to step forward. Days later, an invitation came. Colt Maverick was holding a gathering at his ranch. Against her will, she was drawn there with her family. The house loomed large, lanterns spilling warm light onto polished wood. Inside, women draped in satin whispered behind gloved hands. Tallulah felt their eyes like nettles on her skin. She wanted to vanish, to sink into the floorboards, but then Colt appeared. He did not offer grand words or dramatic gestures. He merely placed a chair near the fire for her and, with quiet deliberation, handed her bread before serving himself. In that simple act, she felt something stir, a shield placed gently between her and the sneers of the room. She sat, the firelight dancing on her face, and though doubt gnawed, warmth crept slowly into her chest. He visited the village after that, not with bouquets or gilded trinkets, but with deeds. He mended a broken fence. He traded fairly, no condescension in his tone. Sometimes she would find a handful of apples left on her doorstep, no name attached. The language of his heart was silence and action, not honeyed words. Yet she felt her guard faltering each time his boots left prints near her home. One evening, under the cottonwood tree whose roots clutched the riverbank, he took her hand. He did not speak. He simply held it, steady as stone. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. Did he see her as she was, or as she longed to be? Before she could ask, a gunshot cracked from town, splintering the moment. Raiders had struck, chaos spilling into the street. Colt was gone in a blur of horse and dust, his figure swallowed by smoke and noise. Tallulah stood frozen, fear burning her throat. She prayed, begged the night to spare him. Hours later, he returned, shirt torn, dust-caked, blood streaking his skin, but alive. Relief surged through her, so fierce she nearly cried out. Across the crowd, their eyes locked, and in that charged stillness, she knew her heart belonged to him, though she had no words yet to claim it. The moon was high when he found her again, this time in a meadow where the river whispered and silver light painted the grass. She tried to turn away, but tears betrayed her, spilling hot down her cheeks. "I am not beautiful enough," she confessed, the words broken as they left her. "Not for you. Not for this world." Her voice cracked like dry wood in fire. Colt stepped forward, every line of him carved with resolve. His voice was rough, low, almost breaking. "You are the beauty I have waited for all my life." The wind stilled. The river hushed. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath. He reached, not for her lips, but for her forehead, pressing a kiss there, sacred, grounding, eternal. In that moment, she felt the weight of years of shame loosen, like chains slipping from her wrists. The seasons turned. Their wedding was not gilded nor crowded with pomp. It was beneath the open sky, with wildflowers swaying in the grass and the mountains standing solemn guard. The town whispered still, but quieter now, cowed by the steadiness in Colt's gaze and the dignity in Tallulah's step. She walked proudly that day, no longer bowed beneath the judgment of others. She carried the strength of storms survived, and the grace of love earned. Together, they built a life, horses grazing in dawn light, laughter chasing across prairie winds, hands joined not in possession but in partnership. And if you listen closely, even now, when the sun sinks low and shadows pool long across the plains, you may hear the echo of their vow in the sighing grass. For beauty, dear soul, is not in mirrors nor in whispers, but in the courage to be seen, and in the rare love that sees you wholly. If ever you have doubted your worth, remember this. Somewhere, someone waits to find you not as the world names you, but as the horizon they have longed for.